Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and this week in Springfield, the budget blamesmanship went to the brink as both House Speaker Michael Madigan and Governor Bruce Rauner upped the ante a few more notches and took some steps to make sure that they demonstrate that they have power and need to be included in this process, and the other guy is the one who gets blamed when we head to a government shutdown.
And we had a big example of that came yesterday with the vote on Chicago schools pension-related bill.
Right, and so everybody thought they had a deal worked out to delay for 6 weeks or so the Chicago Public Schools pension payment, which is due and could quite literally bankrupt the school system. And so they had a big vote in the House, and lo and behold, it did not pass. And so the working theory is that Speaker Madigan thought he was being iced out of negotiations with Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, Governor Bruce Rauner. The two of them have a good working relationship and friendship, and Senate President John Cullerton. And so Speaker Madigan sent a little bit of a message that he is still the old power to be reckoned with in Springfield.
Right. He had an interesting explanation for it at his press conference the next day.
If there was an agreement, it just didn't get enough votes to pass. That's the American system of government.
Will we see it come up again before?
Our plan is to call that next Tuesday and to work between now and then to secure enough votes for it to pass. Yes, there's an agreement in principle among the mayor and the governor and the legislative leaders, but it needs some work.
Did you instruct any House Democrats to vote no on it?
We don't instruct anybody to do anything. You know that. You know,
And then the governor went ahead and took a portion of the budget bills that the House and Senate passed to him and signed that into law. And what was that all about, Matt?
Well, if the schools didn't have the state portion of their funding on August 10th, they were not going to, they wouldn't be able to open. And that would be chaotic all across the state. And Governor Rauner, in his statement after he signed this bill, basically said, well, I'm not going to let Mike Madigan and the politicians he controls throw our state into chaos, so I'm signing this bill so that the schools can open.
So we're already seeing these two gentlemen claim they have bigger bats than the other player.
And nothing happens without the other side reacting. In Speaker Madigan's press conference, he constantly referred to the Rauner Republicans who could have voted for the Chicago pensions bill. It's always the Rauner Republicans. And then, of course, when Governor Rauner gives a press conference, he talks about Mike Madigan and the politicians he controls. And even in his ad campaign, of course, he says Mike Madigan and the politicians he controls. So you have the politicians that Mike Madigan controls versus the Rauner Republicans, I guess. I guess we have two varieties working.
So it's really all about trying to put the cast of blame on the other guy and to make sure that you don't get blamed and that you look like you're trying to do the things that you need to do. Mike Madigan has become this champion of the middle guy and the working class in the last several weeks whenever he has a press conference, which has now become pretty much a weekly occurrence, which is not all that usual for him.
And again, as we pointed out before, what you have at work here is the battle of two philosophies of government. Bruce Rauner came in, unlike any Republican governor before him. They were all usually content to, let's get in there and make some deals. Rauner's not there just to make a deal and move on and advance his political career or go into a lucrative law career after or whatever.
Right.
Rauner is there to bring in a new style of government, less government involvement, what he sees as a more vigorous business climate.
Right.
He wants all these business reforms as part of it. He says he's willing to talk about some new taxes to fill in this $4 billion budget gap, but he's not going to do that if you don't do things that he believes will then, in the long term, improve the state economy so you're not constantly relying on more and more tax revenue or new sources of taxes to build ever bigger government. So that's what this is all about. And you know, we talk about the brinksmanship and the gamesmanship and the power struggle that's going on, but really, this is going to have some serious consequences because we are a week away now from beginning fiscal year 2016 with no budget. And that means that the Comptroller's office cannot issue checks, will not have authority to issue checks. And Comptroller Munger held her own press conference a couple weeks ago talking about exactly what's going to happen with state government once she no longer has that authority. And here's what she had to say.
Our Constitution is crystal clear that without an appropriation authority with an agreed-to budget, I will be unable to carry out my office's primary duty of paying the state's bills and ensuring that we meet our financial obligations as a state. Continuing appropriations and other provisions will allow us to cover some things. We will make the state's debt and pension payments. Retirees will still receive their benefit checks. The temporary assistance for needy families and assistance for the aged, blind, and disabled programs will continue. And we can make most local government payments because they are not tied to an appropriation. But everyone else will see new funding dry up. Nonprofits, social service organizations, and small businesses that currently receive expedited payments because of existing hardships will find that we are unable to continue that practice until a budget is resolved. Medicaid provider payment will stop. State employees will begin missing their paychecks on July 15th, and we will be asking them to come to work with no idea of when we will be able to pay them.
So, as you can see, it's not just a matter of a little tug of war here and no real consequences. We're going to see some consequences come July 1st.
And some real people will be affected.
Exactly right.
And won't be able to go get groceries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it gets to be that simple at some point here, and some very valuable social service agencies may have to close their doors as a result of this.
Right, or begin what they've done so often before is go begging to banks for long, long lines of credit.
Yeah. So that's it for this week's edition. Middle of next week, we have no budget and a new fiscal year and a government shutdown. We will be back to talk about that then. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.